I'm Officer Brush for Officer Brush Talks About Stuff. And today we're talking with you. I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of about the game that you guys are having come out soon.
Thanks, Justin. My name's Anthony. I'm part of a company called Wild Robot Games. We've created a game called Patriot. Patriot is a social deduction 3 to 6 player base game with a 1 to 2 player campaign mode. The story of Patriot is that it's a country on the brink of civil war in Karmonia. The president in Karmonia has been delivered 5 demands from an assassin, and these letters form the basis of each round, so there's 5 rounds. Players in the game are tasked to either save the president with a sneaky little mission on the side, or assassinate the president. And all while maintaining a country that's really on the fast track to destruction. It's not a great country by any means. And that is, of course, unless you're the assassin, in which case you're trying to sabotage votes and cause general chaos. So there's a lot of stuff going on all the time. It's really fun.
Okay. What kind of brought this idea to life?
It's a really good question. I actually started making this game 6 years ago, if you can believe it. So I'm 31 now. So what does that mean? I was 25 when I made up this game idea, and it really stemmed from the fact that I love Fantasy Flight's Battlestar Galactica. Have you ever played that before, BSG?
I have not had a chance yet.
It's oh mate, you've got to give it a go if you can. But the only thing is, Justin, is if you try to get Battlestar Galactica, you're going to be paying like 200 American buckaroos for it. It's now out of print, and so my friend who's a BSG fanatic for the show as well, he picked up all of the game and the expansions, and we had been playing that for like 5 years, once every few weekends. So we're pretty well obsessed with it. We also love games like Dead of Winter, other social deduction games with an emphasis on storyline and strategy. So then came along, I had a few changes in my life, and I was like, I really want to pick up a hobby that I love. And I just started thinking and brainstorming about ideas of board games I could do. And 6 years ago, I mean, the world was a very different place in the geopolitical climate, right? It seems like it's more chaotic now than 6 years ago. But even so, I thought there was a relevance of today's society across a number of different countries. And I thought, what an interesting concept it would be to have a social deduction game based on a world that's really in a civil war kind of scenario, and like a little bit cyberpunky, a little bit post-apocalyptic. So I started creating this game, and little bit by bit, I worked with 2 artists, one in LA, one in Mexico, and together it took us about 2 years, just really slowly building out this game together. The artist names are Jeff Brown and Ali Phelps, and they're just incredible artists. So that was kind of the inception of the game, and it really just grew and grew and grew from there, until about 3.5 years ago, I launched on Kickstarter initially for the game, unsuccessfully. So that was, a little bit of another story in itself.
Okay. And was that the first project you had ever done on Kickstarter?
Yes. Yeah, correct. That was the first one. And to be honest, I was going in a little blind. I didn't really know what I was doing. I thought, I have this really cool product. I'm going to put it on there. Everyone's going to love it. And Justin, I'm sure you know, as well as many other people, I was quite naive, right? But yeah. I'm sure you know that you can't just launch a product on Kickstarter without preparing like all heck. It's really an e-commerce platform that you have to bring your own customers to. Now I'm a little wiser on that part, but yeah.
That's one of the things that I've kind of understood from a lot of people, is that they go in unprepared it's a brand new market for them, and sometimes the first try doesn't get through, and it takes a couple of different tries. But I feel you're a little bit more confident now this time around.
Oh yeah, I'm much more confident. I think the fact is that um, I came to grips with reality that you look at Kickstarter today, you go on the front page and you see honestly like 10 projects a day sometimes that are launching, and they're just all beautiful. They're insanely impressive. The same amount of work has been put into these games as have my game, and a lot of these companies have customers that are super loyal. Like, I know there are some companies out there. I think Steamforged is one of them. They're releasing like 8 products this year, 8 Kickstarter games. So they have this loyal following already. So being a little guy like me, you have to really be smart and strategic about how you launch onto Kickstarter. It's not just a, hey guys, check out my cool artwork and people will love it instantly. You're competing against the best of the best. So how do you actually do that? It's really hard.
And what are some things that you've learned from the previous project that you've kind of applied now? What else have you learned from that?
So much. So we, at the end of the last campaign, we put out a survey and we said, you know, guys, sorry this didn't come to light. And I was really lucky enough that we had 110 backers with little to no marketing. So people we had some true fans. People really did believe in it, and the people who decided to dive in, they really said, you know, this has some potential here. This is a project I want to support. So we sent a survey out to those backers, and we said, how can we make this better? And we got so much awesome feedback, and I really took it on board. One of them was make a 1 to 2 player campaign mode. They said that you're segmenting your market to 3 to 6 players, and there's this huge call to action from people who want to have a solo mode, who want to play with their partner. I'm one of those people. Me and my fiance, we love playing board games together, and it is a deciding factor to us to buy games that are accessible for 2 players. So that was one thing. Another thing, and Justin, I could talk about this forever, but I am conscious of your time as well. So one of the big block that I've done this time around that I took on from feedback is get your marketing right. It's really what I was saying before, where you have to bring your own customers to Kickstarter. The Jamie Stegmaier, he's like a god among men for board game creators. He has awesome guides about how to market your project, and I really took those pieces of advice on board. We got a marketer who is she's an incredible marketer. She really understands the board game market, and we're going pretty hard on Facebook ads, Instagram ads. We're doing newsletters. I'm talking to anyone I can. And that's why I'm so thankful for today, because it's any little thing that you can do to get the word out there is going to help, and it's going to bring a following in.
We can start talking about the gameplay itself, and you know, how does that work, and how did you guys develop it? I know you took some inspiration from other games, but it really seems like it's something of your own. So let's talk about it a little bit more. Let's talk about, you know, the 3 to 6 players, because that's the main version that you have, and you have the 1 and 2 player version, but it's really better with more people, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's nothing to sleep on. The 1 to 2 player mode is really fun. Just a little short bit on that is that it takes the characters in the game. So we have 14 characters that have these immersive backstories, and so what we wanted to do is take those backstories, put it into a campaign mode, so it really explores their characters, and you're still fighting all the same kind of battles, but it's not social deduction. And because you know, social deduction with 2 players, it's like, you know, it's pretty obvious who the bad guy is if there's only 2 people there, right? Yeah, we've kind of treated that like an expansion of the main game. But yeah, the main game. Do you want me to give a quick overview of the how to play?
Sure.
Yeah, cool. Essentially, what you're doing is you're. I mentioned earlier how you have these letters from an assassin. So each round, a letter is flipped over, and the assassin says, "I want this," or threat is going to increase. And each time threat increases, you're getting closer to assassination of the president. So if you're players in the game, you have these allegiance cards, and the allegiance cards say this is what you have to act as the entire game. You want to save the president, or you want to be sneaky and assassinate the president. So if you want to assassinate the president, then you have this letter demand, and you're doing little sneaky things that don't out yourself as the assassin, that sabotage the votes, or it changes the way of the gameplay without yourself being found out. If you're the save the president allegiance, you're really trying to maintain the board, find out who this assassin is, trying to card count, trying to look at all the influence cards that are going into these votes and saying, well, I know Justin gets spy influence, and he sabotaged a vote then because there's a lot of spy influence in here. But so that's the basis of how you act in the game. Then you have every player has a turn each round. You go around the board and you pick up these little cards called influence cards, and they are multi-use cards that can vote in things. They can pay for different things. Then you use your action points. So each player has between 8 and 10 action points, and they can use them on these 17 tiles across the board. So you can do things like raise taxes for the citizens, but if you raise taxes, the citizens won't like that. It's a little bit like real life. Then if you raise the taxes, civil unrest of the citizens go up. So if you get close to the top of the civil unrest track, then a riot can start. So you're constantly battling these things with the actions you take in the game. You can launch beacons. A beacon is like an extra in-game tile. You can actually try to assassinate players. You have science that you can do as part of these actions and get extra in-game abilities.
Okay.
Or you can, or you have the war room, which is all about combat. So you can deploy troops or execute rioters. So that at every end of the turn, you pick up a brief card. So a brief card is like a little bit of a storytelling piece of the game, similar to Dead of Winter in a way, where they have the crossroad. And it says it has unique art. There's 72 unique brief cards in there, all with different artwork. And you have a little story byline, and there's a voting thing that all players contribute their cards into. So once you do that, everyone has that turn, and the end of the round comes. And when the end of the round comes, you check to see if the letter demand from the assassin has been met. If it has been met, then cool, you can then do the rest of the round actions, which is raising the taxes, making sure that there are no rioters that you have to deploy out, since it's a revolving thing. Riots never go away unless you execute all the rioters.
Okay.
And you reset beacons, then you start the next round, and then you just go on and on until you reach the end of the 5th round, where you either pass as the save the president guys, or if you're the assassinate the president, you try to end the game by increasing threat to the top level. So that's kind of it. It's about half an hour per player, we estimate.
Okay. And is it one of those games that as it doesn't become a bore when it's not your turn? Is there stuff that they can do while that turn the other player's going? What can they work towards as they're watching everyone else play?
Totally. Well, there's probably 2 things to keep in mind. Firstly, and a lot of people just really get into the role playing of this game. So you have like the president's daughter or the chief of science, and they're all quirky characters, and you're encouraged to act as your player in the game. So at the end of each player's turn, you have these brief cards, right? So everyone's always contributing to the brief cards, and you have to vote in there. You have to help players make decisions. But the other side of it, part two, is that you are always interacting with other players. You really have no choice. You have to interact because if Justin, if you were gonna do a bad move on the game in the game, I'd have to call that out, man, because like I'd be saying, you know what? Why is he getting his own in-game abilities when we have a riot to defend here? That's really suspicious. So it's encouraged to talk amongst the players, and you find, hey, people can get pretty fiery.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I liked about this was the sense of mystery for a lot of this. You're talking about the voting, but a lot of times people aren't going to really know what people are putting down for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So if you vote in a brief card vote, it will say you have to try to reach 17 of spy and science influence. So everyone tries to put in spy or science influence, but if you put in, say, war influence, which is not required, it detracts from the total vote. So everyone puts their cards in face down, and then you shuffle up all the cards, and you add in two from this deck called Public Opinion. So there's always two cards in there that are like super mystery cards. They're just from the deck, and you add it in. So you can end up with at least two bad cards, but there could be two positive cards. Or you can, if someone's gone hard and they're mystery kind of like trying to sabotage the vote, they can just put in heaps of cards in there. But you have to be careful because people are really smart at card counting and like keeping track of what people can put in. So it's not easy, but it's definitely done.
So some people's real world experiences can actually help them in this game when it comes to kind of reading people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So was it just you that came up with this idea, or who did you work with to kind of help bring this to light? Because it has everything from tokens to small figures that are for the soldiers and the rioters. You said you worked with some people on the art, but the story's all you, right?
Yeah, that was all me. I do have. So from the first launch on Kickstarter, it was me, and I would catch up weekly with the two artists, Ali and Jeff. And I'd say, and so Jeff is like a background artist, and he does all of the he does the beautiful artwork on the board. Actually, you can see all of the beautiful background art here.
Okay.
And Ali, she does the character art. So I'd catch up with them and say, Ali, I need to make a president. I want him or her to look a certain way, and they have a certain feeling, and this is kind of their backstory, and then we'd come up with it together. And so that's all the artwork, but the stories that was me. But this time around, because we've added the 1 to 2 player campaign mode in, I do have a childhood friend who's helping me out. We've made some campaigns together, and it's really good to have another opinion there, because sometimes you can get one-track mind, and just having more brains on a board really helps you.
So you really wanted to make sure that people were getting a premiere experience whenever they pick this up for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, it's a game that is not it's not for me, it's for everyone out there. I just hope that what I have brought to the table is also what the people want. But what we've focused on, especially in this relaunch, is we've focused on getting a manufacturer early. So we're working with a manufacturer who they're based in China, but we've been working with them for about 6 months now. And it's quite strategic for us because we want to make sure that we can build in components that are really professional and high quality. So the prototype that I've got here, this is from them. And what we've done is we've pulled it all apart and we've said, all right, well, I want the punch boards to be thicker so it has a better feel, like a better hand feel. The board, we say we want to make the colors a bit brighter. And for us, that's great for two reasons. Because it gives the higher quality product for the end consumer, but more importantly, it gets it to them quicker. So we think we can deliver within 3 to 4 months to the consumer because we're not going to have to go back and forth with a manufacturer from China, go through a whole tender process, and sometimes those things can be really time consuming.
Okay. So let's talk about the riot system and the threat levels and how that can impact the gameplay. What exactly is the idea behind that?
Sure. So riot cards so firstly, let me take that back. Civil Unrest is the tracker that I was talking about before. So it sits to the right of the letters cards.
Okay.
And what happens is you can take actions throughout the game that increase that civil unrest level. And the concept behind it is you might have you think of any government around the world and the taxes example I was talking about before. Well, you're going to have a lot of outcry if you suddenly say, we're going to increase taxes by 20% for all citizens. There's going to be a lot of people unhappy with that. Or you can take actions, or the brief cards can have increased civil unrest because it kind of builds into the storyline and it's not an outcome that's desirable for the people. And there are a lot of things throughout the game that can pull this civil unrest up. So while you're constantly trying to battle the civil unrest tracker, what it means is if it reaches its top level, a riot will commence. And what that signifies is the people have had enough, now they're going to riot in Karmonia. And it happens quite a lot. These people are pretty unhappy. So when a riot commences, you pick up a riot card and it will give you instructions. It'll say, if there are 3 to 4 players, put 2 rioters in every location. So around the board, you've got the taxes, the surveillance center, you've got the laboratory, or you've got the war room. And you'll pick up a D4 die and you'll roll your die and you'll put your rioter on a defense space that correlates with the number that you just rolled. Now, why it's unique is because before the riot commences, you can actually put troops on the board and they act as defenses for your tiles. So if you have a riot there and if you have a troop on defense space 1 and you roll a 1, instead of putting a rioter down, you just take the troop off instead. Why that's important is because if you the first time you put a rioter down, you increase threat by 1. So the game can end quite quickly. There's only 6 threat for the whole game. So you have to have defense in mind from the get-go. Second to that, if you can also move troops around the board, so you can kind of strategically put them where they are. But if you put a rioter down, if you put a rioter down, then you can't use that game tile at all. It's just blocked off until such time that you execute the rioter. So you'll keep on doing this. You put all the rioters around the board, or take the troops off if you've got troops defending spaces. And then after everyone has their turn, if the riot is still active, then you redo the whole thing at the start of the next round. So it can get pretty out of control if you don't contain it pretty quickly. The way you contain it is you roll a die to execute a rioter. It costs you action points to execute rioters.
Okay. Was this a mechanic that you felt you needed because the assassin needed help in that sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you I didn't want the game to be easy by any means.
Hmm.
I wanted the game to be not a pure social deduction game. I wanted it to be something where even with the social deduction part of the game, with the allegiances going at each other, you have to focus on what's happening around the board, and it can turn into chaos unless it's controlled. So I wanted it to be really action packed, and riots are like half the fun, to be honest, in my opinion. Some people love the social deduction side. Other people say I love social deduction, but to be honest, I love just maintaining Karmonia and improving science and um, launching beacons and putting troops out on the board because it's like a whole game in itself, a game within a game.
Okay. So, what kind of things can they expect on the Kickstarter? What do they get for their pledge? Like, what kind of pledge levels are there? What's included in that? And what's your plans for the actual campaign?
Sure. So we're launching October 5th. And when we launch, we're hoping for a really good launch. But if backers are really quick, we've got this early bird special, which is limited to 100 backers. So it's really important that backers get in there quick. We'll have two pledges apart from that. We'll have the core game pledge, which comes with over 300 cards and pieces of art, a double-sided board, um, a really nice component tray within the box, 36 miniatures, and also about three or four punch boards that are filled with all of these different components, two rule books. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's a packed box. And for that, that's going to be 80 USD. And for we've got an all-in pledge, which has all of the stuff in the core box, and we've got 20 metal coins, a neoprene player mat. We've got two new character campaigns. We've got a dice tower. We've got a digital art book. We've got an enamel pin. There's a lot of stuff in this one. I haven't actually remembered everything. I have a hard time keeping track of everything that's in there anyway. But so that one is approximately 120 USD. However, where that's going to be the early bird pledge. So we're going to sell that for 80 USD for the first 100 backers. So
Wow.
that's going to be a lot of money. The other cool thing for the Kickstarter is we're actually going to turn one of our backers into a character in the game. So if, like, for example, Justin, if you back, you can enter a draw and we
Okay.
pick out your name and we'll work with you to put you on a character card, a completely playable character in the game. You'll have your own campaign mode. We'll give you a backstory. And we'll follow your direction, really. If you want to be a nice guy, you can be a nice guy. If you want to be evil, well, hey, we'll make you a dictator. That's completely up to you. But yeah, that's something we're really excited about.
Yeah, that's something that is unique. You don't see a lot of people involving the backers like that.
Yeah, I'm so excited about it. I really, and I understand some backers may not want to become a character. That's completely fine. You don't have to it by any means. But I'm really excited, and I hope people get into it because Ali Phelps, who's the character artist, she's
Hmm.
just incredible at making people into characters, and she's done a great job with the other characters, and she'll do someone justice, complete justice, whoever it is. So yeah, I hope people get into it.
Awesome. So, how long is the campaign going to run?
Yeah, 28 days. So 5th of October and whatever 28 days is after that, it's about 4 weeks. Yeah.
Okay. And is the launch in what time zone is that in?
Um, I'm doing my best to calculate everything in US time zones. So, so we're actually launching 8 a.m. Brisbane, Australia time on the
Okay.
6th of October,
I will convert
which
that.
So yeah, so it's 12 hours, 15 hours before that is
Hmm.
what it's going to be for American time zone. So probably around like I think it's around 3 4 p.m. in US time zones on the 5th of October.
Okay, all right. That's going to be exciting. So you've been working on the solo and two player mode, 1 to 2 player mode. We can talk a little bit more about what you included in that, and the value in that as well.
Yeah, sure. Um the 1 to 2 player mode, like I mentioned previously, you can't really have a social deduction if it's 1 to 2 players. It just like
Hmm.
it doesn't work. So our challenge to ourselves was how can we build in this world of Karmonia and all of this cool stuff kind of happening and battling against each other, but we don't have social deduction. So what we said was let's rip out the letter demands. Instead, we'll have a tracker for the the players where they put their standee in the middle of the board, and we have positive and negative event triggers depending on where you sit at the end of your turn. So essentially, we have, for example, one campaign which is the chief of science, and he has a mission to build all of these beacons, and it kind of builds into his story where he wants to undermine someone, he wants to charge a heck of a lot of money out, and he wants to like make a quick buck, and kind of that's his stick. So, in order for him to do that, he has to build beacons. But it's not as easy as that because it's really hard to build beacons. It costs a lot of money to build beacons in the game. It raises the civil unrest right up if you want to do it. So,
Hmm.
one player or 2 players trying to do that, it's very hard. However, if you use the tracker and you position yourself where you have a positive event trigger, it becomes much easier to build beacons. And if there's a riot going on, we've put a special tile on the board there as well, just for that particular campaign, and that kind of rotates out per campaign. Special tile on the board with a special action, as well as different positive and negative event triggers. So
Okay.
that's kind of the difference. But you have all the other stuff, like you have riots, you have beacons, you have the treasury and taxes, you have the civil unrest, you have the threat level. So a lot of the stuff is the same. It's just tailored into a story.
Okay. So let's talk about the presidents. Those are going to be, they're not the most character development because all of them seem to have character. Just reading the little bios and things like that from them, it's easy to see that you really thought about all of them. But what makes them, each of the presidents, different? How does someone get selected for that? And what why is it being the president important?
Um, yeah, that's such a good question, Justin, because it's something that we really thought about a lot. Um, the with the presidents, well, yeah. Firstly, you're right. They do have different backstories, and they do act differently. Um, you have Donovan Maelstrom, who's a president, who's actually the son of another character in the game. Um, and secretly, just between you and me, his you have Victor. Now, Victor is like a really gruff old man, like an old white male, and, and it's kind of plays towards that trope as well.
Okay.
Um, and then finally you have Marion, who has an indigenous descent, and she's a really strong lady. She's very very strong, and it's probably my favorite. I love Marion. I think that she's just what has probably the best intentions of all the other presidents, but maybe sometimes a little too strong in how she acts. She can actually assassinate a player at will if she hands in the right amount of cards and
Oh
science
wow.
markers. So, like, rule with an iron fist kind of thing. um, so, yeah, they act differently from each other, and each one you choose has a different play style. So it kind of really defines the game in who you choose.
Okay.
But at the start of the game, everyone rolls a die. If you're the highest roller, you're the president. After that, you choose your president character, and where it's different is that the president still receives an allegiance card, save assassinate the president. However, they put it under their character card and they never look at it.
Okay.
So the reason for that is because if you don't see your allegiance card as the president, it means that if you're in, like, say, a 5-player game where you have one assassinate the president card, then potentially the president has received that card secretly, but they always act with a save the president mindset because, president doesn't want to assassinate themselves, right? Like, it just doesn't work. So that's it's kind of a way for players to question even whether there's a bad player in the game. And sometimes it's not so obvious. Sometimes it can happen and you're like, oh man, I'm not sure if there's any bad guys around here, but Justin's still doing some suspicious stuff, so
it really caters to the friend group that you're playing with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There's some people that are always a little bit more suspicious by default, right?
Okay. During all the play testing and things like that, is that when you added more characters, or was it always going to be the set amount of characters that you had? Or
we had the 14 characters from the first launch. I'd say though that the biggest changes, we've significantly changed their powers because every character has a strength or a weakness. You have 14 different strengths and weaknesses. You have once per game abilities and you have passive abilities. So just imagine trying to balance all of these changes and making sure that all of the combinations can work together in a way that is fair and doesn't ruin the game.
Yeah.
So we've had to test like so much with all of these characters, and we've kind of dropped some abilities down a little bit. We've upped some others, and we're still testing. We'll test until we ship out the game. There's never not room for improvement in any game, even like Scythe. Even the simplest games, there's always a way to make a game better. So we're trying hard to balance the characters. Yeah. Okay.
And one of the things I noticed in the rulebook is that you guys are wanting to kind of thank all the backers and put their name in the actual book itself.
Yeah. Every single one, of course. We're the small guys, right? And for us, every single backer is going to hold a place in my heart forever because it's been such a journey for us, and I get really even emotional about it because it's hard. Like, it's really hard for us to get people interested in our game. It's a beautiful game. It's really fun. People who play it love it, but just to get eyeballs on the page is a hard thing. So to have people who believe in the product as much as I do is astounding to me, and I'm so thankful for every backer. I'd give them all a hug if I could, like. So the least amount of things we could do is put them in the rulebook forever as a credit. Yeah.
Okay. And so you talked about it being 3.5 years is kind of when most of the major stuff started occurring, but how much time do you think you personally have probably dedicated to this game?
Oh my God, I don't want to think about it. Next question. I don't want to think about it.
Okay. We'll come back to that maybe after the campaign.
I would say well over 1,000 hours. Uh, I'm I probably right now I spend about 5 hours a day doing things around the game. Um, that's been happening for around a year now,
Okay.
and um, I took a bit of a break after the unsuccessful launch of the previous Kickstarter, and it was probably pretty required because it is a big like it's a mental toll when things don't go the way that you think they will. Um, but you know, like hundreds of hours, thousands of hours before that as well. So I'll, in short, a long damn time, man. It's been a lot of damn hours.
So, what are some things that the fans and the people that are finding your game can do to kind of help get the word out? Like, where can they go? What can they share?
Yeah, the best thing for us is just click notify me on the Kickstarter page. That if backers can do that, that means the world to us. It's really a signifier that that we're going on the trajectory that we need to be on, and by having more people on there, other people get more confidence because if people see 10 followers on a Kickstarter page, they're like, look, I don't know if this is going to fund. But
Yeah.
we're at almost 1,300 as at today, and so it's getting to a pretty decent number. But we really want to get closer to the 2,000 to 2,500 mark. That's like a real sign of confidence for us. So please sign up on Kickstarter. Have a look at we've got a backer kit page for a newsletter as well, where you
Okay.
can see some behind the scenes stuff if people are interested in that. Um, and you know we're always posting on socials, so that's probably the best locations.
Okay. And the other thing that we can get to, and this will be probably one of the last things we talk about, is you guys actually have a tabletop simulator mod, don't you?
Yes, we do. Yeah, yeah. So that's it's got over well over 500 plays now in the game, which is cool. Like people seem to be picking it up. It's fully scripted. I'd yeah recommend giving it a go if you're on the fence about it, which is completely fine because I'm gonna try to sway you, man. If people are on the fence about it, but if you want an unbiased way of finding out if you like it or not, just go play the tabletop sim mod. That's the best thing you can do.
Well, overall, I wanted to say thank you for putting the time aside in the morning to come and talk to me. You've obviously put a lot of time in this, and this is another hour that you get to add to that clock on
Yeah.
time that you've gone and done these kind of things. It looks like a fun game. The rules are very well written. I know you guys are constantly going over things until launch, and even when launch is going on, you guys are going to continue to work on it. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
if anyone
The,
has any questions, where's the best way that they can reach you?
yeah, I would say please reach out to come into it. Send me a DM on Instagram on Messenger. You can also, if you have any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. We're really not precious about how the game is formed. We think any feedback will make it better for us and therefore make it better for you. So you can send us an email at wildrobotgames@gmail.com if you'd like to give us some thoughts as well.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come and talk to me, and we will see you when the Kickstarter launches.
Thanks, Officer Brush. You're a real gentleman, and I really appreciate the time that you've taken for us as well. It means a lot to us, so thank you.